It's the Growler with PD&Jay. Here to analyze for you today. From Growler Bad to Jay's got stats. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Growler Podcast.
There it is. Welcome into the latest edition of PD&Jay on the Growler. What's going on, Jay?
Hey, opening day. I know this is a Bengals podcast, but a big day in Cincinnati. And I'm not going this year. That's rare that I'm not, but still exciting just to see baseball back and to see this city come alive.
I am going, and I will come alive today. There's no question about it. No, it's been I list this circle on the calendar every year. Always very excited. Opening day. Grandparents get some great time with the grandkids. Get to go and enjoy opening day. It's all I do love it. It's one of my favorite days here.
Mm-hmm.
The way everybody's out and walking around and having a good time and in a good mood, and the L doesn't hurt too bad. Whatever. everybody's all good. Fun party. So yeah, looking forward to it. Also, it reminded me, shout out to the Bengal boys who threw together a cut from last week on our episode, Dan Pitcher. We talked to Dan about the Bengal boys and pointing out that he remembered that move, Mitch, get out the way, and they brought that back out, and us asking him about coaches, and so it's on the radar. It registered, okay, registered with the Bengal boys last week. So there's maybe there will be some more coach songs, even though everyone's understanding that Dan indifferent on wanting that to happen. But shout out again to Dan for a great episode last week. If you haven't seen it, went through tape with us on Gesicki and Moss and talked about the Brown signing and everything. Great of him to share so much insight and so much time.
Yeah, it was great. And it like Paul said, if you guys haven't seen it, go back and watch it. I mean, you can listen too, but it's much more enjoyable when you watch it and see what Dan is referring to and what he's breaking down. Yeah,
great stuff. So make sure you check that out. Also, let's see, league meetings this week. We're going to get into some stuff from there. Katie Blackburn talked. Thanks everybody that hung out. I was on vacation. The episode with Mike Renner is up, kind of setting the groundwork for the first 3 rounds. A little bit of a catching you up in case you were the casual fan that hasn't been paying much attention to draft stuff, and now you're in it. A nice layout from Mike, who does such a great job on all things draft. So go back and check that out if you haven't listened to it as well. We've got, of course, a ton more deeper dive draft stuff coming your way. We wanted to kind of wrap everything from the league meetings in sort of the newsy part of the week. So I was on vacation, but I'm kind of back for this now. And so but we got time to talk about. There's a bunch to kind of get to, a bunch of news to tick through. Katie Blackburn, Zach Taylor had the coaches breakfast. We have new rules. You're going to hear from Darrin Simmons, Jay. Talk to Darrin Simmons. You probably saw that story up on Pro Football Network. And so we're going to give you that interview and his view on this new rule and the Bengals' view of it and all that type of stuff. So that coming your way as well. Jay will have stats. We will have RBs, all the things that you come to expect here on the show. I read a story up last week on sort of the free agency trend of explosiveness. And it's something we've talked about along the way the whole time. And go read it if you want to go more. And it's sort of a kind of a better look into exactly how they specifically pinpointed that trait offensively and found ways and angles to get it. But there's one thing I wanted to bring out here for our YouTubers, but we'll talk through it here as well. And that is that you have a team that just doesn't throw the ball 20 plus yards in the air to the tight end. Hasn't, ever. So this chart, so you had last year, this is the last 3 years of the Bengals, okay? You have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and then all Cincinnati tight ends combined. Targets 20-plus yards down the field. Jamar, 65, of course. T. Higgins, 46. Of course, Tyler Boyd, who's been almost, mostly underneath, 21. All Cincinnati tight ends, 4. With 1 completion. Okay? This is regular postseason. You name it. You remember C.J. Uzomah, deep touchdown against Baltimore, week 7. That's it. That's the time. Versus pre-New England. Again, we're not holding New England against Mike Gesicki. The 3 previous years, Mike Gesicki, 29 targets, which was a top 5 number on that span amongst all tight ends. He was second in completion percentage on those at 55% and second in EPA per target. That's crazy. First of all, all Cincinnati tight ends over the last 3 years have only had 4 targets, 20 plus air yards down the field. It's been a non-existent part of the game. And to now have Gesicki in the mix, we talked about explosiveness, but not until I was like, how many times have they ever even done this? And my mind was a bit blown on that stat, just to see how little they actually had done it.
I'm glad you said the completion, because I'm racking my brain trying to think of what the one deep ball completion was. Now, what was the Jacksonville game? The you can't zero me, when they kind of threw it back to CJ.
Air yards.
Yeah. That was a
screen. I mean, that was a right. Are you?
Then I'm thinking of a different play. I thought there was a play where they dragged CJ across. You're right. That was a screen, and they had the blocking out on the edge. But yeah,
Minnesota.
That could be
overtime against Minnesota.
Okay. And that might have been close to 20, but
yeah,
it's validating. I've got a mock draft coming out, a 7-round mock draft coming out today, and I had them taking a tight end with that 3rd round comp pick, and it's not a guy you would think of as explosive, so it kind of fits this perfect. But that is staggering to 4 total and 1 completion.
1 completion. That's it. And now you add Gesicki, who's kind of half Tyler Boyd, half tight end, right? I mean, he's big slot usage, but even then, more than Tyler Boyd has ever seen. Your ability to go do that is going to be a fun weapon for them. Something we talked about with Pitcher last week, but I kind of wanted to drop one last little bit of that on there. That full story is up there if you want to go read that. Let's touch a little bit on some of the news here from the league meetings. And obviously that usually leads with Katie Blackburn, the only time she really talks all year. It wasn't particularly newsy. The one thing that's kind of been circulating a lot was them saying they hadn't started any conversations with Jamar Chase on contract extension stuff, which really isn't much of a surprise. If you look at sort of the history of anybody that has a 5th-year option available to them.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. I know one of my favorite quotes, and it's not just the Bengals side of it. I mean, Jamar was open last year about not being in a hurry to get this done, and it was one of my favorite quotes from him. And there are many. He's fantastic. It was a simple 2-word answer when he was asked if he would be interested in waiting out Justin Jefferson to see where his contract lands before he signs his, and he said, "Hell yeah." I mean, that's just, a lot of times you think about these guys, they want to get paid sooner rather than later, but he's smart enough to know that his value's not going anywhere. And, you go first, you get topped. And we've seen that so many times. And I don't think that there's this urgency to get him done. And it doesn't mean there's reason to panic. It's just kind of the way these things happen if you're not a quarterback.
Yeah. I'll go back. I'll just read. I wrote about Jamar's contract situation back in the T. Higgins series because it was all very connected. And Jamar's contract situation is one where he has this year and then the 5th-year option they're obviously going to exercise next year, which would be $21.8 million, same as T's franchise tag this year. And so there is no history. I'll just read it. Since the implementation of the rookie wage scale with the 2011 CBA and the institution of the 5th-year option for first-round picks, only 1 receiver has signed an extension before their 4th season. That was 2013 draft pick Tavon Austin with the Rams. Not Julio Jones or DeAndre Hopkins, not Mike Evans, DJ Moore, Odell Beckham Jr., not Bengals legend AJ Green. Of the 288 non-quarterbacks selected in round 1 since 2011. Only 19 received the extension in the first year of eligibility. Last to do it, offensive lineman Frank Ragnow and Colton Miller in 2021. The Bengals are one of 19 teams to never do it with a non-QB. Again, QBs break the mold. The Bengals broke the mold in every single way imaginable with Burrow. That's a one-off. There is scenarios as they're trying to get creative with whatever happens with T, with whatever is available money. They have money right now, I mean, to spend. If they don't have, if it's sitting there and they want to find a way to use it, it can behoove them to get ahead of the curve for some reason. Maybe that's the reason, but there is no precedent or reason to believe that they would sign him this offseason to an extension. That would be next year. The same thing happened with Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson didn't sign one last year. Okay, all those dudes didn't sign last year that are all going to be talking now. And that whole market has to explode. Neither side has reason to go early or probably wants to. So just keep that in mind. Again, I know that we've talked about this before, but I know it comes up a lot. It seems to keep repeating itself in the news cycle. Keep that in mind. Like it could happen because what's our percentage? 19 out of 288. We're like a 4%er. The 3-outer if you're a hold'em player. It's like you got caught. Okay, you're taking the L. You're going home. All right, rebuy. All right, that's your chance. That's your chance of that happening. It's very, 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 very low. Maybe we need to get Tavon Austin on the horn.
I know that surprises me that he, of all those receivers that were taken in the first round, is the one that got it.
Yeah.
And we talk about it too, about when they sign these huge extensions and the cap hits they climb. They don't hit right away. If you were to do Jamar this year, then you're talking about next year, that number gets pretty big. And that's when the Burrow one really hits. So this way you just delay that. You're still going to have Jamar on an affordable number this year and next year. And then he starts climbing up after you get him extended. So it makes historic sense. It makes financial sense just to kick the can down the road one more season. And Jamar's not going to make a stink. He's fine. He said he's fine with waiting this out.
Yeah, there's no reason for him to do anything other than let the market continue to go up, let the cap continue to go up, let the TV deals continue to roll. And they're playing multiple games on Christmas. They're playing Wednesday, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. Money's coming in everywhere. Okay. He's not going to suddenly not be good. I know everybody worries about injury, but there's just so few reasons to believe that you should ever be concerned about Jamar Chase getting his coin. And that likely works out. Of course, Jamar and Justin are going to be teammates next year, Jay. So,
that's
matter. Yes, that'll be
this year. I thought
to work out. Yeah. So that's good. All right. Other stuff. Stadium. We can talk a little bit of stadium stuff. That's always top of the mind. Of course, you have the lease coming up here in a couple of years, 2026. People forget. I feel like I'm beating the drum bong again. There are 5 2-year rolling options. It's basically 10 extra years baked into this lease for them to just keep kicking the can down the road. If they can't get a deal, it can just keep going back to the negotiating table. As far as Katie talking about, she said, it's on our radar. It's pretty important to us to get. This is with Jeff Hobson, Kelsey Conway from the Inquirer, Hobson from Bengals.com, who were down there at the league meetings. Says it's pretty important to us to get figured out at some point. We obviously have options for the next 10 years, so we have flexibility to keep working if we need to. But it is definitely something on our radar that we're focused on. We can only do what we can do, which is work with the county on a timeline that they're comfortable with too. These things are always just a little slower than you would like, and there are lots of different options for what to do. It's slow going, but we'll just keep working at it, and I think patience is worth it here. There's not a fixed timeline that anyone has to play out on this. We'll keep working on it and hope to make progress. It's essentially a nothing burger. I don't, Jay, I mean, this is the way it's been. Things have moved slow. There are not really a lot of talks happening with the county right now. There's been renderings. So I don't know. What do you see more to it than anything stick out to it at all?
No, I mean, like you said, I know a lot of people see the 2026 and think a deadline is looming, but you've got those rollovers and honestly, just the finances part of this, everything, it just makes my eyes glaze over. I've never been in that realm to really sit in on those type of negotiations. And the Bengals have every reason to want to stay here, and the county has every reason to want them to stay here, and something's going to get done. I wouldn't even be able to venture a guess on when we would hear something on that. But I think if you're a Bengals fan and you're worried about the future of the team here, just kind of have that in your mind that it makes too much sense for it to get done, and it will at some point. Just don't stress over it and let it play out.
And the other side of it is that they want to keep this stadium around renovated for another couple decades. That's another thing that Katie says, they're focused right now on the renovations. The stadium's 25 years old, and we want to keep it in the great condition that it has been in. We've been focused on how we can keep maintaining it so we can hopefully make it last a little bit longer into the future. We're very happy with our stadium, but it does require things to be done over time to keep it up to standard. So we're just working hard trying to make sure we do that rather than get too far behind. Again, if they're going to be you got to they're in the process now. I mean, they've about $40 million in renovations happening to the stadium this offseason. They're doing the locker room, they're doing the seats, they're doing the outside concourses, they're all of this stuff, you go down there, it's like it's construction zone everywhere right now. They're doing everything they can to keep it up because that's the path they see it going down. They're not trying to go down the multi-billion-dollar path like we're seeing in some of these other even smaller markets now, Buffalo, Nashville, the other. I'm not going to go down the whole list, but we're seeing a lot of these other stadium talks are happening, and I think they're trying to keep a more economical view of, look, let's make the most out of a renovation and get another 2-3 decades out of this, and then see where we go from there.
And they're ripping up in honor of you, ripping up the old turf and putting down new.
About damn time. Yeah, that's right.
It's going to look nice and clean, not dirty anymore.
It better not have more pellets, more black pellets. Okay, we don't need more of that. The nasty every game looks like it's playing on some kind of weird mud. It just looks dirty. All right, sorry. Elsewhere, Zach Taylor's breakfast happens. Not a ton to come out of that. Jay, what'd you make of the Dak stuff? It was more vagaries, no answers yet. High expectations. His role could evolve over the summer. Another quote there. We've gotten these along every step of the way, and now we have 2 new safeties in that room and no room for Dax Hill. And it just feels like there's something else. There's obviously other things still at play here.
Yeah, I don't think they're being coy or hiding anything and not wanting to divulge their plan. I don't think they know their plan yet, and it's something they're figuring out as they go. I'm sure they have some ideas, but want to see how Dax reacts and when they get into OTAs, when they get into training camp. But I was struck by how Zach was going on and on about Dax's versatility and how important that can be to them, and that was in complete contrast to what Lou said at the combine, where he said he needs to do one thing well. And, that was before they signed Geno Stone and Von Bell. And so, things change after that. But I that felt like a big pivot for the DC to say he needs to do one thing well. And then the head coach a month later to just be lauding his versatility and all they can do with him. I don't know where this goes. But he does have the talent. He's shown that, he's proven that, and they just got to find a role where that can come out, and there's less thinking and there's just more reacting and doing.
Yeah. I think the draft's going to play a part in this.
Yeah.
I think they're going to address corner in some capacity. But it's kind of a wild card position in this draft in a little bit. We've talked about there's possibilities you could see them pull the trigger on 18 because that could be the top of their board. There's a lot of you could come away potentially with the best corner in this draft. Maybe it's a weird top. There's a ton of offensive players. There's all these tackles. Like you don't quite know what's going to happen with some of those corners. So there's possibility that their number one corner in this draft and one of their top players is sitting there and he is the best player available. And maybe that changes things. That changes the dynamic. Maybe they in the mid rounds, they end up taking a slot, Mike Hilton of the future, right? Start plotting that a year ahead. And now what's Dax, right? I mean, I just think it's a wild card in the draft. They filled up at safety. There's just a lot of other pieces at play, and I think they have to figure it out once they get all the personnel figured out, and go from there. So more vagaries there. Not more vagaries on Burrow. Same things. Timeline hasn't changed. All reports are good. Going to be part of the offseason program. All looks well. You've probably seen videos at Black Sheep if you follow them, with Patrick Coyne's people over there, where he works out in the off seasons a lot. He's there. He's lifting weights. He's running. He's doing stuff. People getting all excited. People loving those Burrow workout videos. Grab those barbells, Burrow. Yeah, love it. Like, I was just see that, and I just keep thinking like, oh man, people are gonna start sending me the GIF again that I told them not to send. All right, don't do it.
Are they going to fill the bridge to watch him throw in OTAs?
They're always ready to fill the bridge. I know you'll be down there. I know my bridge people when I see them. Okay, there's no doubt. Well, a lot of the OTAs though could be in the bubble. The early ones. They don't want anybody seeing the early throws. But no, it sounds like Burrow's been throwing a little bit, and he's obviously, coming along. This has kind of been, everybody's been very happy with his progress. I will just continue to. This is the name of this episode should be Paul beats the drums again. Like, I just want to continue to say it's all good. Things are progressing well. That's cool. This isn't the moment where I want to see what it looks like in camp. I want to see what the accuracy looks like. I want to see how strong it is as far as being able to throw those deep outs on point, on target, like Burrow can do. Or is there now a 90% strength, 95% strength in that wrist, and it changes things, or he's working his mechanics differently? I wish we all should have learned a lot of lessons from the ankle or the situation with the calf. Okay. Just because he's out there running one day doesn't mean that there couldn't be problems happening the next day. Couldn't be re-aggravations. And I'm not here. I know people were all excited watching the videos. Oh yeah, lift them weights, Burrow. But I'm just saying, like, remember, I just think there's a long process of him getting back to where you want him to be, and check marks that you have to hit besides, okay, he's looking good. Like, it's going to be a lot of what it looks like in camp, a lot of what his mechanics can stay exactly the same, and the ball does the same things, and all of that you got to get through. So just be patient with it. It's going good right now, and that is something that everybody should be all, feeling themselves about.
Where on his body will he be wearing a sleeve when he shows up for training camp?
Better not be anywhere. If he's wearing a sleeve, he better be sitting next to Mike on the cart. If there's anything that has been learned, is that if the man needs a sleeve, he needs to sit. Okay? That's it. No sleeves, none of it. It's going to be a sleeveless 2024. That's what it's going to be. Let's just say this. I will be tweeting in bold caps every time he's wearing a sleeve and actually practicing. All right.
Zoom in on your picture.
Yeah, I'm using the alerts. Emergency pod. Jay and I will do an emergency pod from the sidelines if Joe Burrow is in any form of sleeve and practicing. Okay. Be ready for that. Okay. Other big news, obviously the news of the week in the NFL was the change in the kickoff. Drastic change in the kickoff. It's basically the version the XFL was using, and you've probably seen graphs of it and diagrams, and just there's like multiple pages. It is a huge change. It's going to look dramatically different. Everybody lines up. You basically have both teams lined up in plus territory. in the 40 and 35 in the like setup zone. The kicker still kicks from back where he was, but the ball needs to land in a landing zone between the 0 and the 20. And there's different places that it comes out to. If it goes out of the end zone, if it rolls into the end zone, if it gets touched back, it could be at the 20, it could be the 30, it could be at the 40. Jay, you talked to Darrin Simmons this week. Any details to get in about this before we just let people listen to Darrin?
That was part of it. When I talked to Darrin, he, first of all, just thank you to him for, he was, when I reached out to him, he was driving to Louisville for their pro day, and he, on the field at the Louisville pro day, he called me back and he said he had 10 minutes real quick. And so he talked. So I appreciate him doing that. He was still unclear on some of the rules because there was some certain ways things could go where, you know, if you just blast it out of the back of the end zone, does the team get at the 35? He said there was one where it could be the 40, it could be the 35. So even once it had been announced as passed, even, you know, the special teams coordinators in the league were still a little unsure on this tweak, that tweak. The one thing,
the last second change, right? They did a last second change of bringing out to the 30 instead of the 35.
Yeah,
on one, which was why there was confusion at the end, because that was an actual at the meetings last second amendment by the competition committee, I think, to change it to the 30. I believe. Anyway, sorry.
No, and they may not be done. That was another thing that stood out when I talked to him, is he said it's a 1-year trial anyhow, but he thinks that the preseason is going to be a trial within the trial. And he said he wouldn't be surprised to see some more tweaks to the rule after the preseason. They see what it actually looks like and how it works. And so I like it. I think it's going to be, I mean, anything's going to be more exciting than just touchdown, field goal, touchback. It was just automatic. The other thing that stood out with Darrin is because you pretty much have to have 2 returners now. Because you put one back there, they can drop it in that zone, and you're not going to get a return out of it. He doesn't know. He said, we don't know if we have 2 kick returners on our roster right now. And so you would think Charlie Jones would be one of them, but is Travion your other answer? Is that answer yet to be drafted? I think they've got a lot to figure out with this. It's they do all kinds of research and looking at the XFL model and all that, but still until it's actually implemented in the NFL, it's what you'll hear on this interview. His biggest concern are the unintended consequences. Nobody really knows how this is going to play out.
On that note, here's Jay. Here's a portion, edited version of Jay's conversation with Bengals special teams coordinator Darrin Simmons.
So your overarching reaction to the rule passing.
Well, again, I think it's all depends on what you want to get accomplished here. If the goal, the objective is to, get the kickoff return to be more a part of the game and in addition, trying to help reduce speed and space, and I think this rule probably accomplishes that. It's one of those things that the league came to us us as coaches after the season was over, and like, hey, we'd like you guys to look and search for alternatives to the way things are now. I think nobody was happy with the way the 2023 season went for the kickoff return game. There's 22%, I think, of the kicks were returned, and nobody wants that. We'd essentially kind of taken the legislated, if you want to call it that, to play out of the game, and nobody wants that. And I think this way it accomplishes a couple things. Hopefully the return rate will be higher, and with the reduction of speed and space, hopefully the injury numbers will trend downward, and it'll become the injury rate will be more or closer to what it is conventionally right now in offensive defensive play. I think that's always been the argument, is that the kickoff play was there are more injuries per play on kickoffs than there were any other play in the game. There's a lot of factors, as we know, that go into that. There's more speed, there's more space. So inevitably there's going to be a higher rate of injury when you have that. And so with this rule passing, I think it reduces the speed, reduces the space, and hopefully we can bring excitement back in the game with it. With there being more plays. I think there's 1,900, I think, and like 60 or 70 touchbacks and there's about 90 fair catches. So the fair catch really didn't do what the league wanted it to do. It didn't end up solving what we wanted to solve. So now with there being a little over 2,000 more plays, and I think the league, the analytics people of the league think there's going to be like an 80 or an 85% return rate. You're talking about adding 1,600 more plays a year.
Yeah.
An exciting play. So hopefully we can affect the game in a positive fashion.
Based on what you said about the size and speed aspect of it, do you need to stock that return team or maybe even the kickoff team with different body types now?
Well, I think that's going to be part of the evolution of figuring all this out. Again, as the rules are right now, I mean, our roster limits are 48 active guys, and we still have first, second, third down too that we have to accommodate or that are also a part of the game. But I would think that maybe a guy or two here or there, this could affect our thinking maybe of who we keep or who we keep active. But again, we're still limited by the numbers of active players that we can keep up for a game. So, maybe that affects things a little bit.
Does this put more of a premium on an explosive returner? And do you maybe need to have two at a minimum?
Well, I think as the rules are right now, we're going to have two returners back there.
Yeah.
Whether we've got to decide is, do we have those two guys on our roster right now? I think you're going to need several of them. Or is that a position that you have to, coach somebody and teach somebody to do and play? But when you're talking about 1,600 more plays, on the season for the league, I would think that, again, it does bring value to having another player that can return the ball. Because if you try to go back there and say, okay, we're going to put one returner back there and the other player that's back deep is a non-returner, well, I can tell you what's going to happen. Everybody's going to kick the ball to the non-returner. So I think strategically, you need to have at least two of them on your roster. And again, they got to be active on game days too. So it's, there's a lot that has to go into it.
It's a 1-year trial, but do you have to kind of operate as if it's going to be permanent, both in terms of how you start building your special teams and how deep you dive into the data this year?
All we can control is what the only thing I can control is what we do in 2024.
Yeah.
I can't worry about what happens in 2025. So we'll adjust and adapt the same way we did a year ago. We'll adjust and adapt to whatever the current playing rules are, and then we'll go from there. I think there'll probably be, I think there may be some loopholes maybe in this rule that allows some flexibility. We all know it's going to be different. There could be some trial and error stuff. I think what will probably happen is we'll go through the preseason, and if there are small adaptations that we need to make, we feel like maybe better, that are small changes. I think after the preseason, maybe there'll be an opportunity to tweak a couple things. Maybe it's a difference in the landing zone, yard line for the landing zone, or maybe, just small changes, not big fundamental changes that are going to be happening right now, but just small incremental things. I think we probably have the ability to adjust. We're going to have the ability to adjust that a little bit if need be.
Okay. I had one more for you. I heard a whistle. I don't know if you need to go, but
yeah, here in just a second. We're getting ready to start the 40s.
Okay. Yeah. Just what is your biggest concern with this?
Well, like with anything, I think everybody always is concerned about the unintended consequences and of what the unknown stuff is, and we'll cross that bridge, and we'll cross that bridge when it comes. We'll make the best of it. I do think it's a positive. I think this rule is the best alternative to get done what the league wanted to get done. We wanted a different alternative that reduces speed and space, yet at the same time, increase the return rate. I think that does that. Am I excited that we're at this point? No, I'm not. I'm a traditionalist. I'd rather line it up and cover, kick it deep and cover and do those things. But I also understand there's another side of it. There's a player safety side of it. I think from everybody's standpoint, it's going to look a little different. Hopefully we can still make it an exciting play and bring some intrigue back to the game after a PAT or after a field goal, that the kickoff becomes, more exciting again.
There's Darrin Simmons. I'm sitting here thinking, the dynamics of how different special teams coordinators handle the personnel groupings are fascinating. It to me, it plays out more like a run play, where it's like a wide zone run or something. And you've seen when you watch the XFL highlights ones before, I mean, there's trickery in there. You could have an extra returner kind of on the outside front line that comes back and you fake a reverse essentially around sometimes to try to keep people off a different. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do. But you get some speed, you get a couple of speedy returners. And then I think in the middle, I think you have almost tight ends, linemen, tackles, right? Like that are running wide zone scheme almost. It's like, there's so many different things that you can do with it. It's a very different play though. No question.
Yeah. I think the run play is a great comparison because it, from looking at some of the examples and it has that feel of a 4th and short, a 3rd and short, where you break that first line and you're gone. And I can see that happening where you get a speedy guy and you on a regular kickoff return, you've got to make a couple cuts. You got to dodge a couple guys. It feels like on this one with everybody so condensed, you break through there and you could be gone. And I was just looking up while we were hearing from Darrin there, the NFL record for most kick return touchdowns in a season is 25. Could that fall this year? Because you're going to go back, like he said, 1,600 more returns this year. I can't even do the math in my head to come up with what that percentage would be, but it feels like the opportunity is there, and which is what they want. They want this to be more exciting. And if you have guys breaking through and ripping off long touchdown returns on kickoffs, that is definitely going to be exciting. It might be maddening. It might be nerve-wracking for the special teams coordinators defending it, but I do think it's going to be great for the fans.
Yeah, and we'll see how it plays out. But again, you saw it immediately. Cordero Patterson, like ready to rock. I believe I saw a report that his agent was just hanging out at the meetings waiting to see that thing get signed, and then he signs a 2-year, $6 million deal in Pittsburgh. And so, because now he's much more valuable, that many more times you can get that guy a chance to touch the ball, makes those types of players exciting. I think of someone like Chase Brown. I mean, who has that breakaway speed, running back vision to, is Travion that guy? I don't know. But I mean, you look at Chase Brown's fastest ball carrier in football last year, right? I mean, and if you can get a crease and you can get him to get some speed going and he's got that vision as a running back, he could be a player. We know Charlie Jones. I mean, I think you're going to see some value placed on that in the draft with some of those guys that are, like Charlie Jones was last year, or some of these others that are, maybe they're a slot receiver or whatever, but they have some dynamic return tape. Tank Dell was like that.
Yeah.
Push up the draft board just a half a round or a full round, because now you think about, the old verbiage on it is just find a way to get that dude the ball, right? And if you now have that many more opportunities to let a dynamic playmaker touch the football and teach him how to do it in this way, it could be it could be incredibly dangerous and make a big difference in your drive start or hitting home runs.
Yeah, and another reason why the Zach Moss signing helps, because the Chase Brown thing is interesting. Yeah, that's what they had him returning kicks when he hurt his hamstring before the San Francisco game and put him out that time. And you put him back there, and maybe he doesn't rip it off for a touchdown, but he rips a long run. Then you're worried about him huffing and puffing a little bit, and you just slide Zach Moss in on 1st and 2nd down on that series. And it is I think Charlie Jones, Chase Brown could both be what Darrin was saying, the guys on the roster that could be those explosive guys that end up back there.
Yep, and still expect to see them drafting what? A receiver and a running back, probably. And I think you will probably see one of those two guys have some pretty significant return ability to them, because those are the types of players that fit in those roles. Hip drop tackle got passed. Obviously Logan Wilson and Mark Andrews was kind of where that thing came to the forefront. Kind of interesting that they said this wasn't that tackle wasn't exactly the point of emphasis that they're talking about with what this is. Jay, I'll let you go first before sorry, I've had a week to stew on this. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't like it. It's just going to be too hard to officiate, I feel. You still don't know. I mean, even when you go back and watch replays, should that have been, should that have not have been? My hope is that, and the players aren't going to want to hear it, or maybe they would. I mean, maybe this is a better alternative than just a flag fest, but if this ends up being more about fines this year than flags, and just then they get the point, they know what they did wrong. I am curious how many flags we're gonna see for actual hip drop tackles this year. It's gonna have to be really egregious. The Wilson one wasn't. The Logan Wilson one wasn't even on the tape that they put out, but there were two other ones where Bengals were victimized that were on there with Drew Sample, and then at Dallas and Tyler Boyd in the AFC Championship game. It's just physics. If you're grabbing a big ball carrier from behind, unless you slide down and wrap up his legs and hope he doesn't just drag you, I don't know how you get him on the ground without dropping your weight. And then, like the Logan one, his body hit the ground first. He didn't fall on the back of the player's legs, but you can fall on the back of a player's legs without intending to. It's a really hard thing in the moment to contort your body in a way that's going to comply with what the NFL wants.
It reminds me when they instituted the you can't drive the quarterback with your body weight rule in. And that's so hard to officiate. It's so hard for a player in that moment to not do. You're trying to get him to the ground like you're however you can. These are big dudes, right? It's the same thing here. Yet we have seen players get better at not driving quarterbacks with their body weight. And we've seen that not be a reason quarterbacks are getting injured. We found plenty other ways quarterbacks to get themselves injured, but that one hasn't been as much. It has evolved. People were mad about it at first. It did change some games, but it eventually did work its way out. I think this can be that, but the part that I'm with you, and again, players don't probably want to hear this. I just think it should be more fine oriented and less let's not change. If guys are playing the game, let them play the game. Let it not affect the outcome of the game. There's too much for everybody involved in that. If individual players are using that consistently and it's hurting their pocketbook, guess what? They're gonna stop doing it. Okay. But I don't like it becoming a critical 15-yard first down penalty, 3rd and 22, and a check down happens and a linebacker ends up getting a hip drop flag from behind. Like now it's insanely frustrating, game-changing type call that's so hard to see and flag in the moment, right? I mean, I don't like that. That should be something that should come back later with, dude, you got fined. Like you just can't be doing that style anymore. And that sucks. But that's the game. Like if you don't like that, don't play it. Don't play that way, whatever. I hear you, but I think changing the outcomes of games is where I start to have the problem with it. And because it's just too hard to officiate. But I don't know. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be one of those things where we see a flurry of them in preseason and they're hardly called when the regular season starts, and it kind of gets washed away just to make people think about it. But still, a lot going on there. Other news here, I think the Trent Brown money's out, Jay. And it's 1 year, 4.8 in cash, 4.4 cap. I mean, a incredibly digestible number for a starting right tackle. Sitting out. That's when we do the mock off season and we do all of our free agency previews and talk about waves. This is the prime example of second, third wave signing. Okay. When they sit there and they have no suitors and the price comes all the way down to the team's range. And that's where you can really get the best. It would end up being some of the best signings in free agency every year. I don't know if Trent Brown will be that. I think that's largely health dependent when you look at his history and maybe weight dependent. But if if he plays at the level that he's played the last few years when healthy for this team, even 3/4 of the season, that's a hell of a bargain at right tackle.
It is. I mean, that and the Gesicki signing really surprised me for how cheap they got him. And especially because Gesicki was so early in the process, with Trent Brown being that late and Drew Rosenhaus probably knowing that you don't want to say the Bengals were over a barrel, but it was dire. That was really their last good chance to get a guy. And it might felt like they have to overpay to make that happen. And instead they got a bargain. And I mean, hats off to the front office for getting that done. I do think that was really surprising. I've got some stats. You want some tackle stats?
I always want some stats. I always want some stats.
So I was thinking about this. I was thinking, well, what if Trent Brown is the starting right tackle and he plays the whole season and, the Bengals make another deep run? How often has a Super Bowl champion had both starting tackles in the Super Bowl that weren't homegrown, that weren't drafted by that team? You don't have to go back far to find an example. The Chiefs last year with Donovan Smith and Juwan Taylor, they didn't draft either one of those guys, but they broke a trend that went all the way back to 1998. 1998 was the last time a team had two starting tackles in the Super Bowl that they didn't draft. That was the 98 Broncos, Tony Jones and Harry Swain. All those in between, from 2022 to 1999, at least one of the starting tackles in the Super Bowl was drafted by the team that won it. 15 of those, both tackles, were drafted by that team. Wow. So, yeah, we assume the Bengals are going to draft a tackle this year. Maybe he ends up starting over Trent Brown. But if it's Trent Brown and Orlando Brown, there's some history there that. And I know saying they're going to win a Super Bowl, that's a high bar, but you just don't see it a lot with these really good teams where they're bringing in new pieces at both of those left and right tackle.
Talking about the 1998 Super Bowl gets me thinking about how damn Vikings should have been in there. It should have been young Randy Moss and Chris Carter and all those dudes. I loved that team. The stolen rings in that season. Ended up losing with the Dirty Birds, unfortunately. Still,
I have a bad experience from that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So we were in a car accident on the way to our Super Bowl party. It wasn't a serious one. We were at the exit ramp on Paddock Road, and a car came flying up the exit ramp and actually hit there's two lanes there. Hit the car next to us, kind of slid, just bumped us a little bit. We were fine. But the cops came, they put that guy in the back of the car. He didn't speak English. They were waiting for his brother to come. His brother came and shoved and kicked a cop, and all hell broke loose. What? And we couldn't go anywhere. They said, we need you guys to give us a statement, but they had to get everything. So we sat there, our beer's getting warm, it's getting closer to kickoff. We're just sitting there waiting to give our statement on what we saw. We did make kickoff, but it was a memorable Super Bowl for that reason.
I love that you start with "our beer's getting warm, officer." Come on,
well, that wasn't my complaint to
him. But that is a famous line in our household. My wife is a lawyer in the prosecutor's office, and she says, "There's one thing: never be a witness. It's never good. You end up being it's always an inconvenience in some way. You never want to be a witness because you have to help. Like, if you're the one that saw a thing, you're in the system. All right, like and off you go. You didn't want to be. Don't be a witness. Jay learned that one the hard way on that Super Bowl.
Took a day off work.
The Vikings should have been in. Damn it. Loved that team.
Yeah, the wife and I took a day off work and went into court to testify once the court case came up. And the guy, of course, didn't speak English and fled the country and never showed up. And so we didn't actually have to testify in court. But it was, I will keep that in mind. Never be a witness.
Fled the country, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. There's always a way out. Okay. Well, you know what? While you've got stats, do you have any other stats? It's opening day, Jay. Do you have opening day stats for me?
I do. This is
opening day stats.
This is the most minutia of minutia, but I figured it's opening day. It ties in. I was looking for a a correlation between Reds winning on opening day and then the Bengals having success that year. And it was all kind of all over the place, as you would imagine. Wins and losses don't in one of 162 don't tell a lot. But there is one interesting thing where you guys want to root for the Reds today, but you don't want to root too hard. Since the Bengals became a franchise, the Reds have scored 8 or more runs on opening day 9 times. In those seasons when the Reds did that, the Bengals only went on to make the playoffs once. 8 out of 9 times when the Reds score 8 or more, the Bengals don't make the playoffs. The one exception was 1990. Again, no real correlation there, just kind of I don't even know if you want to say interesting or fun, just something I found. This one you might like, Paul. It's an election year. So I went back and looked at how the Bengals have fared in past election years. And they made the playoffs in 12. They made the playoffs in 88, but that's it. 12 out of 14 election seasons, they have not made the playoffs. But in 3 of the last 4 election year seasons, the Bengals have had a tie. They tied Philly in 2020. They tied Washington in 2016, and they tied Philly again in 2008. So maybe there's and one on the schedule this year for another tie.
You always want a tie. You know what? Send the Bengals to Germany and get another international tie.
That would hurt, though, to tie the Panthers.
It would hurt. But you know what? It's just the European fans are so comfortable with the tie. It's great. That's why I like it over there. Like, just keep the ties overseas. You know, they know how to deal with them. Doesn't ruin their day at all. They're very comfortable with that emotion. It's great. Love that. And by the way, we'll know in May. That was another little thing to kind of come out of the owners' meetings. I think we will know in May if the Bengals, and they're not going to be any early knowledge of that, where who the away opponent for some of these international games. Of course, the one the Bengals could do this year is the Panthers in Germany. So we'll know then, along with the rest of you. The team will know kind of along with the rest of you whether they are going to Germany next year or not. Katie also mentioning looks like they're due. So a home game in 25 or 27, again, where the AFC has the 9 home games instead of 8. One of those 2 years, one of those home games probably going to get shipped somewhere. I mean, they're playing everywhere now, so who the hell knows? Maybe they'll end up in Brazil. And people are asking about the international marketing rights. They're not one of the teams that has those yet. That's something they're still looking into, trying to figure out where they best fit, it sounds like, and figuring that out going forward in the future. But anyway, so there's one last bit. Maybe me and you in Lederhosen this year, Jay. Let's go. Let's go. Love it. And it's Carolina. So our good friend of the program, Joe Person, he's excited about Germany. So I would love to be hanging out with Joe Person in Germany. I'm here for it. Our guy who covers the Panthers for the Athletic.
I didn't wear Lederhosen, but when I worked at Kings Island, I sold Volkswaffles, and I did have a very German type outfit that I wore for that.
Volkswaffles?
Volkswaffles. It's where they ended up being funnel cakes, but they're like you get at the fair. They're like those snowflake looking deep fried waffles. And I worked there for a summer. Shucking those things.
Stories. I bet there's stories.
There are stories.
Yeah. We'll save those for another day. Okay. We've already got a couple of good ones in. So we'll save those for another day. All right. Speaking of stories, I guess Arby's to wrap us up. You've already shared some stories. Do you have another one?
Well, two quick ones. So my colleague at Pro Football Network, Adam Beasley, was at the owners' meetings, and he took 10 recorders and just put them on a bunch of different coaches' tables. And so he obviously did it and put it on the Bengals table for me, so I could get that. And I've been to the owners' meetings the last 3 years, didn't go this year. It never changes. I feel sorry for Zach, but he takes the questions, he gives good answers, but every year these teams at the top of the draft, the reporters that cover those teams, want to talk to Zach Taylor about starting a rookie quarterback and then he has to go through the whole Burrow thing again. And so it was just funny hearing that over and over again, and how he just it's 7:45 in the morning when they do this. It's probably the last thing he wants to do is rehash these questions, but he did it. He was really good. The other one, I don't know if you guys saw Marlon Humphrey, the Ravens cornerback was on a podcast and he was talking about Geno Stone. And I just love this. I think it says a lot about Geno, because when Geno signed with the Bengals, Lamar Jackson said, "You're dead to me." He kind of pulled out the Tiki Barber line. And I asked Geno about that. He said, "Yeah, Lamar gave me a heads up." He said, "Check Twitter." He told him he was going to do something like that. On this one, Marlon Humphrey was talking about how he's talking to Geno and figuring out, he's like, "Do you have teams?" He's like, "Yeah, I got teams." And then he finds out it's the Bengals. He's like, "What about the other teams? Why them? Why are you going to play for the Ops?" And he said on there, he said, "Look, I'm really, really happy for my guy, but at the same time, screw you." And it was just, I love that there's that relationship that Geno had with his teammates in Baltimore. You can see what kind of teammate he's going to be in Cincinnati. And you don't see that a lot. A lot of times the guys don't talk about other teams in free agency. It's more just kind of their business is their business. But I do like that a couple players of former Ravens have reached out to Geno and jabbed him a little bit about joining the Bengals.
Yeah, that's great. That is awesome stuff. I will say this. I have one. So I mentioned, I was on spring break. It's spring break for my kids this week, and so it was the chance to get away. Went down did the beach thing, whatever, and it was an amazing vacation. Had a great time. But for all the travel, Jay, that we do over the last few years, I've been lucky. I'm knocking on wood, drywall. We haven't had a whole lot of like flight disaster days, right? It's been kind of smooth sailing lately. So it had been a while since I experienced a flight disaster day. We had one yesterday trying to get back. I honestly didn't know. I texted you. I said, "I don't know if I'm getting out of Florida. I think this is where I live here now. Okay. I'm just going to like pick up a job, like, probably raking the sand at Clearwater Beach or something. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'll find a way." But anyway, so we were there for about 4 or 5 hours, but it was supposed to be a longer delay at the airport. And it was because they were waiting for a crew. And the crew apparently is there and says, "Hey, we can fly. We haven't timed out yet." And so all of a sudden, everyone's thinking it's like 8:30. Everyone's thinking we have to wait till 11 to depart. We've already been there for 4 hours. And she kind of goes on the mic, says, "Everybody, I've got a full crew here. They said we're delayed for a crew, but I'm going to call and see what happens." And everyone just, buzz in the gate like you've never seen. Everyone's like, "Wait, what's going on? Are you kidding me?" People are scrambling about, and all of a sudden you see the crew guy on the phone, and everyone's just on pins and needles. And then finally they come in, they're like, "Okay, they said that we can go." And everyone, obviously everyone loses their mind. We're going to go 2.5 hours earlier than we were prepared for. And they say, "But everybody we have to board faster than we normally do, or they're going to time out." I have never seen the amount of efficiency and urgency out of a group of people in my entire life. Everyone was moving quick. They were doing everything the way they were supposed to. They were being very conscious of everyone around them. People are putting their bags up top and quickly moving to the side. Everyone's going through. "Are you okay? Can you go? Let's go." And we boarded in like 2 seconds. Like, this is what airlines need to do. Forget like the different ways Southwest does it this way. No, it's just people just need to look around and like, they know the rules. They just choose to ignore them. Yes. They're just not doing them because they don't care about anybody else, because it's not affecting them. But when it affects them, everybody knows how to act right and how to board a plane correctly. They know the rules. And it was the perfect example. I've never seen a more efficient, better done, polite boarding process than the one that we had. And off we went into the air. Everybody happy as can be to land in Cincinnati.
Delta bringing fractured America back together.
This is it. Just tell people that this can save you 3 hours if you're just nice to people and do it the right way. Okay. That's what we do this with our kids all the time, right? It's like, look, if you do it right, you'll get them M&Ms, right? It's basically what it was like that for adults. Okay. We'll send you home if you do it right. Okay. So that's
kudos,
my lesson in airlines.
Yeah, kudos to you guys too, because you had your daughters with you. I mean, it's one thing to be stuck in an airport for 4 or 5 hours by yourself, but you throw young kids in the mix, and I can't imagine your stress level.
They very little. They are amazing travelers. I mean, they're 6 and 4, But I said my oldest, I feel like she's like 15 as a traveler. Like she's amazing. She's got her stuff. She's doing her towels. She got her snacks. She's kicking it. We're ready to play some cards. Like she was up later than ever because we were there so late. We had so many bags and my youngest was asleep. And so my wife had to carry her. So now we didn't have enough arms to carry the bag. So she had to go with me at like 11:30 at night to go all the way back to the car so we could drive back and pick them up. She's carrying bags. I mean, she was just a warrior. Amazing performance. Massive MVP performance from my daughter on this trip. So she deserves it.
Birthday coming
all right.
up, right?
What's that? Yeah,
birthday coming up. You can reward her.
Soon to be 7. Soon to be 7. That's right. Yeah, 7 going on 15. She's got it going. She's rocking. All right. Thanks to everybody for listening. Be back Who Dey Light tomorrow. So send your questions in to the Growler Podcast at gmail.com. And Mark will steer that ship wherever you would like it to go. Bengals questions that you've got. And we'll get you started. And a happy opening day to everybody. Hope you all enjoy it safely. Don't get anybody to run into you and flee the country or anything like that. And it all goes well. So thanks everybody for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Have a good one, everyone.